Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'll show you how I've made a hanfu for Layli, my Iplehouse nYID aria. We're jumping straight into the sewing part, so I'll explain more about this project and my decisions for it as we go. I'm starting with the top. I've folded the ends of the sleeves twice to create a rolled hem, which I'll sew into place. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll show a rolled hem in better detail a bit later on. If you want to sew along, the nYID sized pattern is on my website, and I'll have instructions for drafting your own pattern soon. I sew the hems for both sleeves, then I'll start on the collar. The collar is a wide strip of fabric that's cut longer than the space it needs to fit into, just in case the ends of the material fray. I'm using chiffon, so it frays really easily. The collar can be trimmed to size after it's sewn in. The strip should be folded in half and then pinned on the right side of the top with the raw edges together. This collar goes all the way down the front opening, so this pinning might take a bit. As I go through this project, I wanted to extend a huge thank you to my supporters on Patreon. On top of being a big challenge in research and testing, this particular project ended up being really expensive. My health has prevented me from pursuing work this year, so your support in continuing to make better quality and more complex projects has meant the world to me. I absolutely couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much. Then it gets sewn on with a normal straight stitch. Make sure to mind your pins. After ruining a sewing machine by hitting the pin, I always try to remove them instead of sewing over them. The raw edges can be finished with a zigzag stitch set at a very short stitch length. Mine's set to 1 mm. This gives a nice, tight binding that resembles what you get with a serger. After the collar is sewn on, I trim off the excess length and prepare to close the sides by folding the top in half, so the right sides are together, and the side of the top and bottom of the sleeve are also together. This will be closed in one seam, going from the cuff of the sleeve to the underarm, then down the side. So as I said, this is a hanfu for Layli. If you're not familiar with it, it's a traditional piece of Chinese clothing. I love the way a doll looks in a hanfu, especially the really ornate fantasy ones you see for sale in doll clothing shops. However, none of those are ever the right size to fit my weird dolls, so I decided to make my own. As I started researching construction, I found that many real lifestyles were just as beautiful, if not more beautiful than the fantasy ones I'd originally fallen in love with. My favorite versions were the chest-high and waist-high ruchun, worn with parallel collars. So that's what I decided I would make. The great thing about these styles is that they're made with squares and rectangles, so they're beautiful and easy to make. Once the sleeves and sides are sewn closed, I use my tight zigzag stitch again to finish the edges. I'll turn the top right side out, then it's time to finish it. The last step in creating the top is to finish the bottom edge with a rolled hem. Like with the sleeves, this is done by folding the edge up about 1/4 of an inch, then folding again so the raw edge is tucked neatly to the inside. Rolled hems can be difficult sometimes, especially on slippery fabric like this. I make them easier to deal with by going slow, making lots of adjustments, and using lots of pins. Then this hem gets sewn closed with a straight stitch. You may have noticed I'm not backstitching as much as I normally do. That's partly because of this fabric being so delicate and thin that if I try to do more than 1 or 2 stitches to lock the ends of the seam, the fabric bunches up or even gets sucked down into my machine. The only place it's really important to lock stitches is at the cuffs of the sleeves. But if you're not comfortable backstitching, you can also just tie the tail threads in a knot. I don't do that often, but sometimes it's the best solution for working with tricky fabrics. After I trim all the loose threads, the top is finished. I'd love to iron this, but honestly, I couldn't tell you where my iron is right now, since my laundry room is kind of being remodeled. So everything will be a little poofy for now. With the top done, it's time to move on to the skirt. I start the skirt by folding the bottom edge up into a rolled hem and pinning it down. I'll hem both halves of the skirt before moving on to construction. The skirt can be difficult to cut and gather because it's a big piece that varies in size by the material you use, so make sure you follow the directions on the pattern carefully. Once the bottom edge is finished, I pleat the top edge of the skirt panels. You can do this by hand, but I hate making pleats, so I cheat and doll scale by using a ruffler. My camera ate the first clip of doing this, so I came back with a scrap for your benefit so you can see how easy the ruffler makes it. It saves so much time and effort. If the top edge is cut like this, you'll need to finish the edge after pleating to ensure it won't fray. But I get around that by using the selvage on my real skirt panels, which won't ravel. Now it's back to the real skirt panels and preparing them for construction. Before the sides get closed, I make a rolled hem at the sides of the panels too. But this doesn't go all the way down the side, it only goes down a few inches from the top. The sides of the top will be left open a few inches down, so your doll can be dressed easily. Making a few inches of a rolled hem on both sides of either skirt panel prevents those openings from fraying as you use the garment. Once the slits are hemmed, I put the two skirt panels right sides together and pin the sides closed from the bottom of the side slit to the bottom hem, and then sew them closed. I decide to take a chance on the skirt and backstitch at the ends to ensure nothing will pull apart. Which is great, except for a couple minutes where my sewing machine randomly decides it won't go forwards again. It came unstuck, but that's a good indicator that it's probably time to find somewhere to get my machine serviced. Regular maintenance is really important, and I honestly can't remember the last time I had it serviced. Like with the top, I'll finish these hems with a tight zigzag stitch, ensuring this skirt will stay nice for years to come. Once the sides are closed and finished, I add the decorative part of the waistband to the pleated top of the skirt, both front and back. I saw a lot of beautiful traditional designs that used patterned material for a wide waistband, so I decided to emulate that by using a brocade ribbon. Floral patterns are more traditional, but I couldn't find any, so I just tried to go with something that worked with the colors I picked. I pin this to the top edge along the row of pleating stitches and fold the end of the ribbon to the inside, so I have a nice finished edge. Then I sew this on. I didn't have a matching color of thread for this, so I used clear nylon thread for the top stitches instead. I sew down the ends of the ribbon too. The nylon thread is really useful for going over patterns or dealing with fabrics that are hard to match, but it's also super slippery, so I spent a lot of time rethreading my machine when I use it. Finally, to finish the skirt, I add ribbons that will be used to tie it closed. For the back half of the skirt, I use a narrower, plain white ribbon, sewing one to either side. For the front, which is the ribbon that will be visible, I use a length of organza ribbon in a similar color to the rest of the skirt. The ends are heat sealed so they won't fray. Like with the white ribbons, I attach one to either side and stitch them firmly in place. Once both ribbons are done, the main part of the outfit is finished and ready to wear. The top goes on first, then the skirt slides up over it. The collars can be crossed left over right, or you can lay them parallel like I've done. The ribbons on the back half of the skirt get tied tight in the front. Then the front half goes up over that, and the ribbons on the front half loop around the back and get pulled to the front, where they'll be tied together, and the ends looped around the ribbon a few more times to create the friction needed to hold up the heavy skirt. I'd skip the lower layers of the outfit in effort to avoid bulkiness, but the chiffon I used is so sheer that I'll need to back up and make the traditional undergarments that go with it, so I'll be sharing that soon too. In the meantime, the outfit itself is done, and I think it turned out pretty. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.